Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 656. And today's date is May 1st, 2015. And the title of this episode is The U.S. Economy Continues to Collapse with Q2 GDP Forecast, Another Disaster. Now, before I get started, I just want to let everyone know I placed the Andy Hoffman interview up on the X22 Report Spotlight. To get to that channel, you can go to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight, or go to the X22 Report channel, and on the right-hand side, you'll see a link that will bring you right to the X22 Report Spotlight. If you come to the X22report.com site, I have it on every single report, and it's also on the right sidebar. You can actually see the video and click on the link to go to the channel. Those people who are on the alert system will get the alert. Those people who subscribe to YouTube on the X22 Report Spotlight will get the email to let you know that a new interview has come out. Now, I have another interview coming out this Sunday. It's with Greg Manarino. And then on Monday, I have Michael Snyder, and we have James Corbett coming up, James Turk, and many others I have scheduled in advance. And I'm trying to get more and more people to come on, and hopefully we'll continue with this and we'll bring more and more experts on, and I will do the interviews. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, we understand Greece, they are having a whole lot of trouble right now. We understand that Greece is trying to capture anything they possibly can and bring in the funds because they do have payments coming up. They were tackling the pensions, and it seems there is trouble in Greece. Right now, as we know, Greece is completely running out of money. And what is happening is there was a glitch in their ATM system, and people couldn't get their money out. They couldn't get to their pensions, and when they received the pension payment, they couldn't get to it. And it went on for 8 hours or so, and they said it was a technical glitch. And the people are now panicking because they're worried that their money is not going to be there. And a lot of the pensioners are in line. They're not just going there to take out their one payment. They're actually going in and they're taking out all of their money. And people are getting very, very nervous. And this is not helping that the ATM systems were not working. We see Soteria Zalatini, 75, a former civil servant, said, "Normally, I only withdraw half the money at the end of the month, but today I'm taking every last drop of it. There are so many rumors going around. We don't know what's really going on, and we are very, very nervous." And I don't blame them. We saw what happened in Cyprus when things started to fall apart, and all of a sudden the banks were shut down. They were on bank holiday. People woke up on Saturday. They couldn't get their money out, and this went on for over a year. And we can see right now that people are very, very nervous about this. And we can see that most of them now are going to the bank. They're standing online. They want their money, and they're going to take it out. And this is going to be a major problem because the government was going after a lot of the pensions, after a lot of the money, because they're trying to build up as much as they possibly can to make the next payment. And they are still short. And it's getting harder and harder for them to do this. And we're going to have to watch to see what happens. A lot of people are talking about Greece exiting at this point. And from all the indicators and from everything that we're seeing, it does look like they're heading down this path. Now, here in the United States, we understand things are getting tougher and tougher out in the real world. And I'm not talking about the illusionary world of the government with unemployment at 5.5%. There's no inflation. Retail sales look great. Home sales look fantastic. When we look at what's really going on, we see that things are starting to break down. Yes, there are still people that have work. There are still people that have jobs, and they're still making money, and they don't see that anything's the problem. This happened prior to 2008. I mean, a lot of people had great paying jobs, and then all of a sudden one day you were laid off. And then more people were laid off. And then more people were laid off. This is what we're seeing right now. We're seeing many, many companies, a lot of retail, a lot of corporations, desk jobs being laid off at this point in time. And it's getting harder and harder for people to make it. We see right now 1 in 4 U.S. renters must use half of their pay for their housing costs. This is very tough on a family because what happens is as rents continually rise and wages decrease, it gets harder and harder to make it through the month. And we're starting to see that a lot of people are only making it to 21 days. Let me just say, it's hard for me. I have 4 children, and I do not live outside of my means. I have very small payments right now. I'm just like everyone else. You still have a little bit of debt here. You still have taxes to pay. And as every day goes by, I see food is getting more expensive. It's costing me more and more. Electric is going up. Auto insurance is going up. And as these things go up, the income coming in is not. And it's making it very difficult to survive. And we can see right now that this is affecting many people across the country. We see that the census data by the Enterprise Community Partners, a nonprofit that helps finance affordable housing, the number of households has jumped from 26% to 11.25 million since 2007, a sign of how surging rents have outpaced the U.S. wages in recent years. The government defines housing costs in excess of 30% of income as burdensome. It means making really difficult trade-offs. I mean, do you buy food or do you pay for your rent? Right now, as a result, 2.3 million more families face pressure that leave them very close to being homeless. And people in California, Florida, New Jersey, New York, at least half of their incomes are going to housing and utility, which means the other half has to go to everything else. And usually it's not enough to get them through. And we can see once you're in that age bracket where you retire and you get older, we're seeing it's even worse for those people. A new report looked at the financial health of Americans at the end of their lives and found that over 20% had no assets except for their homes. And 12% had no assets left at all. They were just completely sucked away. They're completely out of it. Boom, they're done. They made it to the end, and that was it. Some of them didn't even make it that far. The report found that 1 in 5 Americans who died at the age of 85 and older between 2010 and 2012 had no assets except for their home. Now, this didn't help them because they didn't sell their home. They lived in their home. They paid whatever taxes they had, and then they passed away. The families might have sold the home and reaped, the profits from the home, but those people just lived every single day, paycheck or whatever retirement, paycheck to paycheck, and just barely survived. Those who died at a younger age, between the ages of 50 and 64, were generally worse off. And we can see that it is not getting better in the economy whatsoever. I mean, we're looking at auto sales right now, and basically it has missed for the 5th month in a row, worst year-to-date performance since 2009. What is this telling us? This is telling us that all the programs that they have implemented, where they're bringing in the subprime people, those people have a heartbeat. They can't find any more people. They can't give loans away to get these people to purchase the cars. And again, these cars aren't really purchased. They're leased, they're financed. And a lot of them are being repossessed because these subprime people who can barely afford to live in their rentals, they can't afford their cars. And as time goes on, they're repossessed. And that's why we see the delinquency rate at 80%. We see April's manufacturing PMI printed a minimally disappointing 54.1 against expectations that it was going to be at 54.2. New orders and production were the weakest since December, and export business fell for the first time in 5 months. ISM manufacturing missed expectations, and has not risen for 5 months. And we know that manufacturing is completely falling apart. We see construction spending plunged 0.6%. They were expecting a positive 0.5%. This is the 7th miss in 10 months and worst April since 2009. We're going back to that Great Recession period of 2008 and 2009. This is where we are headed. All the illusionary numbers, everything they did to pump this up, is starting to give way at this time. We see the Baltic Dry Index and is dropped once again to 587, down 4 points. This is why manufacturing is going absolutely nowhere. And if we go back in time, on this same day, in 2011, the Baltic Dry Index was at 1260. In 2012, it was at 1152. In 2013, it was at 1157. 2014, 878. Today, 587. You see the trend? It's moving down. This is the raw material that factories use to produce. The factories produce, they send them out to retail and other places. People purchase. Guess what? People aren't purchasing. The factories are not producing. They don't need the raw material. And this is exactly what we are seeing right now. Now, the Atlanta Fed, they came out with their second quarter forecast for GDP, and they're saying it's going to be 0.8%. Well, of course, this is their forecast. We don't know what they included in here, because as we know, things can be revised, things can be pumped up, and this is exactly what we're seeing. But this forecast right now is absolutely awful at 0.8%. The first quarter was 0.2%. Now, they blame that on the snow, the cold weather. Well, here we are moving into the spring. The weather is warm. People can go out shopping. People can go out purchasing. Guess what? They're not doing it. Why? Because they don't have the jobs, they don't have the disposable income, and people are very nervous. They're catching on. They're starting to realize there is something wrong in the economy. Something is not right. And they're looking around and they're seeing that people are being laid off. Their neighbors are being laid off. They can't find work. And I'm seeing a lot of people who are emailing me saying, I was laid off. I've been sending out my resume. I cannot find work. And the work I do find, my salary is much, much lower. And if I take that, I cannot live in my home. I can't pay for my car, and everything will completely disappear. And this is the struggle of everyday America today. What should I do? What happens if I can't make my payments? I can bring in the income, but I'll be delinquent on a car payment. I might not be able to pay my rent or my mortgage, and everything starts to fall apart. Your car is repossessed. The house is taken away. Your credit's ruined. And it just gets worse and worse as time goes on. And as we can see, the entire situation is completely declining at this time. And the government, what are they doing? Well, they're pushing war around the world. They're doing whatever they possibly can to cover up what is coming, and they're running out of time. We only have a certain period of time left until the whole thing comes crumbling down. And they don't want it to happen. They want to control it because they want to make sure they have this event first to blame it on another country or group. Now, as we know, there has been calls to basically ban cash. They want everyone to use the electronic system. They don't want anyone out there with cash, and they say, oh, if you have cash, drug dealers use cash. If you have cash, criminals use cash. But for most observers, negative interest rates signal a bizarre and unsustainable economic landscape. But for those calling the shots, they don't want you to have cash on hand. Why? Because you can take the cash out of the bank and stash it someplace else. And what the banks are trying to do, they're trying to basically charge you for having money deposited. Because right now, as we know, the interest rates are so low, they're going negative in many different countries, especially in the Eurozone. And we're starting to see the same thing occur here. And a lot of people are saying, well, if it's negative and you're going to charge me, why do I need to keep my cash in the bank? I'm going to take it out. And you have to remember, they want to keep this cash in the bank because if they need, or I should say when they're going to implement the bail-ins, they want to lock down your account and you will not be able to access it. If you take your cash out, it is someplace else and they can't reach it. Now, the biggest problem with this is getting the people to go for it, to say, listen, if you put your money in the bank because of the interest rates, some places we're in the negative territory, we're going to have to charge you for your deposits. Now, on the very big companies who are depositing a lot of money, they already started doing this, and you know how this works. They always start with the big money and then it trickles down to everyone else because they always say, oh no, we're only going after the very wealthy. But that's how they start, and then it trickles all the way down to every single person. And we understand that the Citigroup economist William Buttier called to abolish a tax cash, blaming it for interfering with effectiveness of negative interest rates. We also understand that JP Morgan Chase called on banks to charge for outmoded payments like cash and checks in his recent letter to investors. And this is coming from Jamie Dimon. And they're looking basically to have everyone in the electronic form of the currency. They don't want you to take this cash and put it in safety deposit box. They're telling you not to do this because they can't capture that you can go in and take that money right out if you need it. And we can see this is their major plan, to keep all of the cash inside of the banks so when the bail-ins occur, they can lock it down. And this is exactly what they're trying to do. Now we see Obama is out there and the U.S. is backtracking on China's AIIB bank. They're saying, oh, no, we're all for it, but we just have to make sure that the bank upholds the highest lending standards, like the banks here in the United States and Europe. No, basically, they are completely against the AIIB. They're against the BRICS. It is a threat to the entire private Western central bank system. And this is why they're calling, this is why they're out there saying, we don't think the BRICS system or the AIIB is ready. We don't think the yuan, the renminbi is ready for to be a reserve currency. They have to use our technology, and basically it allows the U.S. government central bankers to gain access into their system. They're making up all these excuses while they're trying to balance that, oh no, we're all for it. Well, we have to remember 57 countries signed on to the AIIB. Japan, the United States did not. If the United States was so for it, why didn't they join? And we have to remember, the reason why they started this is because the United States would not give up their voting rights in the IMF. So the emerging economies said, you know what? Hey, we're going to do this on our own. We won't use the IMF. We will create our own bank. And this is what China went ahead and did, along with Russia. Now, a Chinese company is going to be building a $2 billion oil refinery in Russia's Far East. China and Russia are becoming closer and closer. They're also reaching out to many other nations, making economic deals with them. And we can see that the United States government central bankers, they're continually making war around the world, while China and Russia are making economic deals around the world. And this is completely evident in every single scenario. If we look at Africa, the Middle East, Europe, we see deals being made by Russia and China, and we see the United States bringing in more military assets. This has not gone away. It's actually accelerating because the United States government central bankers are looking to provoke nations. We see out in Baltimore, the curfews have kept people off the streets. We see the rioting has subsided a little bit. We see more protests occurring across the country. In New York, we see it happening in Chicago. We see it happening in Oakland, California. And this weekend, there's supposed to be even more protests. And we're going to have to watch this very carefully to see if there are agent provocateurs in the crowds pushing people to do things, of course, to get them all riled up and to start a major riot. Now, most of the protesters that are out there are completely peaceful. They are just pushing their message out to the world without rioting, without destroying. And of course, this is the way the people get their message out, and more people join and the crowd grows and things are very nice and pleasant. Then you have the government who likes to step in and to plan things and to create an instance where all of a sudden someone starts throwing something, where they get more people to join in. This is how you know it's the government. This is how you know it's being manufactured. Because if there is a peaceful march, what would be the reason for them to all of a sudden to riot? Why would they do this? If they have bands playing, if they're marching, their hands are up, signs are waving, all of a sudden they just break out into riots. It makes no sense. And this is how you know when a agent provocateur steps in from the outside and starts doing this. But we see in Baltimore right now, there are 6 Baltimore police that have been charged. They're saying that Gray's death was a homicide. And basically, they indicated that he couldn't breathe when he was cuffed. He had lawfully possessed a knife. And Gray suffered neck injury as a result of being unrestrained. He was put into a police car. They were supposed to a van. They were supposed to buckle him in. They didn't. They drove around, and he was just banging around inside of the van. And when he needed medical attention, the police did not render any type of request for medical attention whatsoever. And right now, it seems like they are now pressing charges. And again, everyone who is arrested has to have some form of respect. Because you are not proven guilty yet. You are innocent. Even though you're put into handcuffs, even though you're put into a police car, you are still innocent until proven guilty. So as an innocent man, you deserve respect. If you're not doing anything and you're saying, I'm not resisting, there is no reason for the police to continually push you down once you're in handcuffs. There is no reason to not buckle you in. And we're starting to see the police are becoming very aggressive across the country, where they're continually doing things that they normally wouldn't do. And I remember a time when the police worked with the community. The children went to school with the children of the community. They were part of it. People knew them by names. They didn't dress in military garb. They were there to protect the community and to work with the community. But we're not seeing this anymore. Kevin Moore, a man who filmed Freddie Gray taken into custody, was arrested and ended up in detention himself after the video went viral. Which is absolutely ridiculous, because under the law, you're allowed to videotape what is going on. Now, as we know, the U.S. government central bankers are never going to leave Afghanistan. We talked about this in many of the reports. And we know that with the authorization for war, they put in there wherever the Islamic State is, wherever Al-Qaeda is, wherever Boko Haram is, Al-Shabaab, or any other terrorist organization, the United States government central bankers can invade that country. And we understand that they're keeping troops in Afghanistan. Remember, they signed the bilateral security agreement where it gives immunity to the soldiers in Afghanistan. This is why they wanted President Karzai to sign it, which he wouldn't. And John Kerry went up into Afghanistan, helped out with the elections to get the person they wanted in power, and he signed the bilateral security agreement. And during that time when the agreement wasn't signed, they said, we're going to withdraw the troops, we're going to bring them down, and we're ending everything in Afghanistan. And yesterday I reported that there are more strikes, there are more troops, and we can see now that they're making the case of why the U.S. troops need to stay in Afghanistan. They are now telling us there are new photos of the Islamic State who set up a base camp in Afghanistan. Now, I have the picture here on X22Report.com. I will also place it on YouTube. And you can see that this was a staged photo. They basically went out, they picked a piece of land. Who even knows if it's in Afghanistan? They had it staged. They put people in masks so you can't see their faces. And they pretty much took the flag and they put it up and say, the Islamic State is here. This is to convince everyone that, yes, they're there. They did the same thing in Yemen. Now, of course, as we know, this is a front for the United States government, central bankers, for Israel, for the UK. And as we can see, it's always the same group of, 20 or so people with a film crew that sets everything up. It's the same propaganda they use time and time again. Now, out in Ukraine, the situation is getting worse and worse as time goes on. What they're saying now is that every Russian citizen who enters Ukraine has to be recommended and have the recommendation documents. And they have to be notarized to enter Ukraine from Russia. Papers, please. Oh, wait, it's not notarized? That this is exactly what you're going to do? You cannot enter Ukraine. We can see they're locking down Ukraine. They don't want any outsiders entering Ukraine. They're making it more and more difficult. They're putting up a wall. They have a barbed wire fence that they're putting up between Ukraine and Crimea. They're completely cutting everything off. Because what they're going to do is they're going to mount a major offensive in the southeastern region. And once they've captured that, they're going to move into Crimea. But they need to block everything off. They need to stop the traffic coming in from Russia. And they're closing everything down at this point. We see right now there was a group of Western aid workers for an organization headed by a former Foreign Secretary, David Miliband, and they have been thrown out of eastern Ukraine on suspicion of espionage. They also took down personal details from people's passports and sought to weasel out information from the rebel officials. Basically, it was a spy organization trying to find out information in the east of Ukraine. Specialists in Donetsk and Lugansk detected these people were trying to eavesdrop, and they had special bugging devices found in the offices, and they were trying to gather intelligence. We see that the Donetsk official has responded and commented to what Poroshenko said. Poroshenko said, listen, this war is not going to stop until we take over the southeastern region and Crimea. So he has no intentions of abiding by the ceasefire deal, which is the Minsk II agreement. It is a ceasefire deal which would eventually lead to a peace deal. And if they can't even abide by the ceasefire deal, you're never going to have peace. And we can see the Donetsk leader, the envoy to the Donetsk People's Republic, said that his words reflect basically what the United States is saying, that they're not interested in peaceful settlement. What they're interested in is war. And we know that's all they're interested in. We see that right after Poroshenko gave his speech on TV, Ukrainian forces opened fired inside Donetsk by the airport. They did this 140 times over the last 24 hours. The area of Donetsk airport, neighboring the Volvo Center, had come under major artillery and mortar shelling. And the Donetsk forces and Lugansk forces are recording every time they violate what is going there. And the OSCE has also recorded that, yes, the shelling is coming from Kiev. They're continually doing this. And we know this entire offensive is now being pushed big time by the United States. Basically, U.S. lawmakers right now approved a $200 million budget, and inside of it is lethal weapons that will be provided to Ukraine. This is part of the $600 billion Pentagon budget proposal for the year of 2016. Section 1532 of the 498-page document calls for the U.S. to provide assistance including training, equipment, lethal weapons, logistics support, supplies and services, and other military help. And they will provide this till the end of 2016. So what do you think they're getting ready for? Now, we know that lethal weapons have been being brought into Ukraine already. I mean, it's not going through Congress. They're doing this covertly, secretly. They're all being brought in. And now they will have the additional funds to get other lethal weapons that they would like to have brought into Ukraine. And basically what's going to happen right now, all these weapons will be in Ukraine. They will start the offensive. More weapons will come in. And of course, they will continue with the propaganda that Russia has troops inside of Ukraine. Tanks are there, military personnel, but they will never give us absolute proof. Because every time they show their proof, it's always the black and white, fuzzy satellite imagery with Photoshop circles instead of giving us the HD color version, because they don't have it. If they did, believe me, it would be out there in a second. Now, Ukraine is continually calling for peacekeepers in the southeastern region, and the reason for this is because Poroshenko has a martial law bill already set up, and he wants the peacekeepers in this region. He wants to say, yes, there's martial law. The peacekeepers will monitor the situation. And we can see now that Russia is saying that the Peacekeeper Initiative was discussed on Thursday in a phone conversation between the Normandy Four, the leaders from France, Germany, Russia, and Ukraine. And basically they agreed that no, at this point in time, in the ceasefire, we do not need the peacekeepers. Putin was out there saying that this is not true. I did not agree to peacekeepers in the Donbass region. What I said was that the peacekeepers are the OSCE. We need to abide by the Minsk II agreement. And basically, once we all abide by it, then we can talk about the peacekeepers. But of course, Poroshenko doesn't want to wait for this. The U.S. doesn't want to wait for this. They want martial law in this region because the offensive is coming very, very soon. We see that China and Russia, they are going to hold the first ever Mediterranean naval exercises. And basically, a total of 9 warships from 2 countries are going to participate. The aim is to deepen both countries' friendly and practical cooperation and increase their navy's ability to jointly deal with maritime security threats. Now, we understand why this is all going on, because we can see the United States government central bankers with the NATO forces, they're building up military assets all around the world. I've been talking about this for quite a while, and we can see it's accelerating. A lot of more advanced weapons are going into the Pacific. 60% of the fleet is moving into that area. We see in Eastern Europe, NATO is doubling the forces and bringing in more and more military assets. Africa, we see the same. Middle East, we see war has already started. And we can see all of this is being ramped up at this time. Now, U.S. Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Ed Royce and committee's ranking member Elliot Engel, they are saying that Washington should apply anti-Russian sanctions in response to Moscow's plan to sell its S-300, I think it's now the S-400 because they discontinued the S-300, to Iran. They're saying that we believe existing U.S. sanctions should be used to deter Russia from transferring this or other dangerous weapon systems to Iran. But you have to remember, these are not dangerous weapons. They're air defense weapons. The lawmakers claimed that the transfer of the S-400 system would bolster Iran's military capabilities. Well, we have to remember that the United States government, along with Israel, have been feeding us propaganda for over 30 years that Iran is getting ready to create a nuclear weapon, and they're only 3 to 6 months away. They have said this for the last 30 years. Iran now, and has always signed the NPT. They've had inspections by the IAEA, and they have never found any nuclear weapons whatsoever. Now, of course, we hear the propaganda from Israel. They have a organization called Memory, which transcribes the Arabic to English, and they always seems to slant it in a way that makes it seem like Iran is ready to destroy the world. And you have to remember, Iran has not started any type of aggression in the last 200 years. If they're attacked, yes, they will respond. But most of what is going on here is complete propaganda. And these are defensive weapons. Now, if they put defensive weapons in there, they can't get into Iran. You have to remember, the goal has always been the same. Going back to Wesley Clark, they were going to get into all these countries, which they've done, but they're losing control of Yemen, Libya, Lebanon, and Iraq. The last two were Syria and Iran. Now, it doesn't matter what tactics they use. The goal is always the same. Yes, they might have a P5+1 deal working right now. And of course, as we know, the deal is really to get into the central bank and to put the oil on the dollar. If they can't get in that way, they will go ahead and attack Iran. And we have to remember, the U.S. government right now is now siding with foreign governments like Israel to do their bidding. Our government is siding with the central bankers who are not part of any government. Their only allegiance is to themselves, not to a government, not to a people. So the U.S. government is a failed government. They do not work for the U.S. people at all. And we can see, no matter what happens at this point in time, they will try to reach their goal any way they possibly can. We see now that the U.S. is planning to move more advanced weapons to Japan. Washington had already deployed a P-8 patrol plane to the Kadena Air Force Base located in Okinawa, and the Global Hawk unmanned aerial vehicle to Misawa Air Base in northeastern Japan. Later this year, the U.S. Ronald Reagan, as we know, the 9th of the 10 Nimitz-class nuclear-powered super aircraft carriers the U.S. has in the service will be dispatched to the Yokosuka Naval Base to replace the older USS George Washington. U.S. Marine Corps will deploy Lockheed Martin F-35B fifth-generation stealth fighters with vertical takeoff and landing capabilities to Japan once they get it all repaired and fixed and actually make it work. More destroyers equipped with the Aegis combat systems are also planned to be stationed in Japan as well, to improve the nation's ability to resist ballistic missiles launched from North Korea. All this, coupled with the U.S. Ronald Reagan, will give the U.S. one of the world's most powerful naval fleets in the Far East to contain China, to contain Russia. We see the same thing happening in Eastern Europe. They are getting prepared, and this is why Abe has been fighting to rewrite their constitution, Article 9, so they're no longer a pacifist nation, and we're seeing it occur right now, that they can be the aggressor. Now, out in the Middle East, we see the situation in Yemen is getting worse day by day. The United Nations is calling on Yemen Saudi Arabia, the United States, that we have a major problem, a humanitarian problem. And with the naval blockade and with Saudi Arabia at the borders and the airports which are damaged and there's battles going on at this point in time, they can't get any humanitarian aid into the country. And people need food, they need medical supplies, they need fuel, and it's getting worse and worse. But what's very interesting is that every single country the United States government central bankers are involved in, they all end up needing a huge amount of humanitarian aid. Think about it. Sudan, Yemen again, Libya, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Ukraine. Everywhere the U.S. government central bankers go, they destroy the country. They make the people suffer. They stop the humanitarian aid from getting in. They do this every single time because the central bankers, they could care less about the people. All they care about is one thing, and that is getting the natural resources of the country and controlling the people. We see this propaganda out there that the Saudi troops now are basically attacking the Houthis because the Houthis came up and they attacked them on the Yemen border. What happened was the Houthis were on the border and Saudi Arabia decided to start firing at them, and the Houthis fired back. Well, of course they're going to fire back. They're defending themselves. But this is propaganda to make you think that the Houthis are going out and they're starting to attack Saudi Arabia. And it seems like they're using this propaganda to build it up for the ground war. And this ground war is coming because the air bombardments is not going to work. Saudi Arabia is already training the other tribal factions to fight, the Sunni factions to fight in the country. And when this does not work, like Syria, they will eventually go in and fight. We see the Islamic State is out there showing videos that they have beheaded and executed 15 more people in Yemen. We're seeing the same scenario occur. Wherever the United States government central bankers need to go, that's where the Islamic State is going to be, and they're going to do something horrific there. Again, they want the authorization for war passed, and they want to get into these countries. We see General Philip Breedlove. He is saying that we need more troops to deal with Russia and the Islamic State. So the amount of troops that we have now, we need them tripled. We see the Syrian opposition talking about having a safe haven. Now think about what's going on in Syria at this point in time. They have basically tripled their area, and I'm talking about the Islamic State, which is one and the same as the Free Syrian Army. They have tripled their area with the help of the United States and the coalition forces. They came in, they bombed in the area, and they expanded their territory. Now what they're doing is they're saying they want these areas that they completely control as a safe haven. And they're asking the U.S. to do this and to set up buffer zones and no-fly zones in these areas, saying they control this part of the country. And we knew this was going to happen, and what they're going to do is they're going to use this area. The United States forces are going to come in because they're going to say this is a captured territory and we can be in there because it's no longer part of Syria, and they will mount an additional offensive into Damascus to remove Assad. Again, the goal is always the same, and this is what we're seeing. The problem is Russia has warships parked in Tartus, which is the port right in Syria. Russia and Syria have signed a deal to fight terrorism together. China is also there, and Iran backs Syria. They have a treaty with each other. So as they make their move into Damascus, this is going to become very interesting, and this could kick off World War III. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.